So, with Genshin Impact being a game with such an expansive cast of characters that seems to have no intentions of slowing down anytime soon, it is honestly very easy for a number of them to end up overlooked. Not to mention that with such advancements come new challenges, which more recent units may at times end up dealing with a whole lot better simply because they are tailor-suited towards them. But even still, accessing each new character addition to the game is a luxury that most players cannot bear. Not just in regards to credit card payments, but also the sometimes tedious, time-consuming, and unrewarding pursuit and collection of in-game resources. With all that being said, however, there are actually times where even the oldest of characters might just be able to benefit from new additions to the game a whole lot, and for me at least, KAEYA is certainly one such example. Hello kings, queens, and majesties, welcome to Whalestat. I am Slice of Otaku, and I have no problem admitting that I had been sleeping on KAEYA for far too long. I've been playing Genshin Impact since the very early days of launch, and because of that, despite being early, I for a very long time had no idea what I was properly doing. These days, the community at large is just a whole lot more well informed and misinformation is pretty much smited immediately, so we're overall just in a much better place. But at the time, the allure of 5-star characters such as Venti and Diluc superseded any willingness to power up what seemed to be boring default characters, at least for me. And I went right along with that thinking for quite some time. And that's because for as much as I wail on this game, I only have so much time to dedicate to it because, at least for right now, the money to wail has to come from somewhere. And even if I were to spend every waking moment of the day playing, there is ultimately only so much progression that may be had within a single day due to certain in-game restrictions. So with that, a ton of characters, yes even 5 stars, have been left to collect dust in my collection. Which makes the upgrade of new characters, especially ones that are not literally new to the game, who would otherwise need to be boosted for the sake of relevant content, a very selective decision. So why of all times have I only just recently gotten KAEYA up to level 80? Well, Update 2.0 made KAEYA crazy powerful, specifically Freeze KAEYA, and with that, I would have to say that this was actually a somewhat gradual development. And that's because the first truly remarkable addition in this realm came to us by way of Update 1.2, which was released towards the end of 2020, in the form of the Blizzard Slayer artifact set. And at this point, Blizzard Slayer is pretty much a household name in the case of many cryo characters. However, the character especially tied to this set at the time was no doubt the ever popular 5-star cryo bow user, Ganyu. But then again, perhaps ever popular isn't exactly accurate, considering many at the time doubted her potential prior to launch. But nevertheless, as we'd come to better understand the character, many would eventually come to realize that in regards to DPS Ganyu, perhaps the Wanderer's Troop set was a better fit. Meanwhile, somewhat silently, KAEYA up until recently with Update 2.0 had remained the best character in the game to run 4-piece Blizzard Slayer with. Why? Well, at 2-piece, the set bonus provides a 15% cryo damage bonus to the character, which is pretty great across the board for your cryo damage dealers, hence why so many of them can benefit from a 2-piece set. But at 4-piece, things get a little bit more interesting because with it, when a character attacks an opponent affected by cryo, their crit rate is increased by 20%. And if the opponent is frozen, that crit rate increase then becomes 40%. What is just absolutely insane and perhaps one of the greatest 4-piece benefits in the game. And to think that for this long, up until Ayaka made her debut, that KAEYA was really and truly the only character worth possessing this is just downright madness. But to take this even further, first up, we have Shattering Ice, otherwise known as Cryo Team Resonance, which increases our crit rate against enemies affected or frozen by cryo by 15%. So yeah, with a freeze team consisting of KAEYA and at least one other cryo user, we are looking at a 55% buff to our crit rate. Ridiculous, but wait, there's more. With KAEYA having been in the game since the very beginning as a free unit at that, the likelihood of many players at least having him at Constellation 1 is not hard to imagine. And that is very good because at Constellation 1, the crit rate of KAEYA's normal and charged attacks against enemies affected by cryo is increased by 15%. So yeah, with all this put together, we are looking at a KAEYA with a minimum of 70% crit rate, which is already the sweet spot for crit rate in regards to a character like this for the sake of making the most out of our stats. And so with crit rate being handled, we can absolutely afford to ball out and go crazy on our crit damage. Incredible stuff, but again, this has only gotten better with Update 2.0. As we have said, 4-piece Blizzard Slayer is for the most part only optimal in the hands of KAEYA and now Ayaka as well. And a very similar case may be found in regards to Ayaka's best weapon, Miss Splitter Reforged. Now I know this is a 5-star weapon and one that is no longer in rotation, but it needs to be talked about. At base and at best, with 3 active stacks, Miss Splitter is able to provide a 40% bonus to our cryo elemental damage, which pads on rather nicely to our 2-piece bonus of an additional 15% to our cryo damage. Now throw in a cryo goblet, which provides a 46.6% cryo damage bonus, and we wind up with a grand total of 101.6 cryo damage bonus. But sadly, this in reality is a number that KAEYA cannot achieve. Because of how his elemental burst works, he can only maintain 2 stacks at a time, and so we instead max out at 89.6 cryo damage bonus, which is still pretty damn crazy. And hey, a crit damage substat is absolutely perfect considering our already fantastic crit rate. But to be fair, KAEYA cannot benefit from all of this by his lonesome. As for one of this weapon stacks, we will need our normal attacks to deal elemental damage, preferably cryo because, well, duh. Which is to say that at this point in the game, with this intended weapon, our required cryo teammate absolutely needs to be Chongyun, as while within the radius of his elemental skill, our weapon will be infused with cryo damage, allowing us to make better use of it, maintaining a consistent stack of 2 so long as our energy is not full. Now in regards to freeze, we are going to obviously need a Hydro character with a quick enough application to keep up with the timely swaps of this team, making Xingqiu an easy choice on account of his easy to acquire elemental burst. But if you don't have him, you can use another Hydro character that you have like Mona or Child. But for our very last position, this is where one may definitely take some creative liberties. When I'm afraid of getting hit, namely when fighting boss creatures that don't actually freeze up, Zhongli is the way to go. Otherwise, your best bet would have to be an Anemo character with 4-piece Viridescent for the sake of grouping enemies together and applying Hydro or Cryo to as many of them as possible. That and the value of Cryo Resistant Shred. I personally use Kazuha because I have him crazy built and he is an absolute favorite of mine, but Sucrose and Venti work just fine, but do bear in mind that Venti may lift enemies too high to be hit by our melee attacks. Now if you feel like you need a healer, Jean and Sayu are viable as well. Even Bennett if you are so inclined. Now, Miss Splitter may be KAEYA's new best in slot for freeze comps, but the likes of Summit Shaper, Aquila Favonia, and Jade Cutter are other 5 stars worth considering if you have them instead. Although there will be certain caveats when it comes to making the most of their true capabilities. And to briefly touch upon 4 stars, even despite it providing excessive crit rate, I do really like how the special ability of the Black Sword, a battle pass weapon, synergizes with his passive healing. But yeah guys, I've been having a whole lot of fun messing around with this KAEYA build. And something that really surprised me is that I forgot to level up his melee attacks entirely. Because he was doing so much damage at base, I kinda just assumed that I had it up there. But lo and behold, in all of the gameplay of him in the video, the talent is either at level 1 or 3 because I did not have the resources. So yeah, hopefully you're not sleeping on KAEYA and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to subscribe to Whalestat with notifications on as we intend to continue bringing you plenty more. And also down below, let us know if you intend to try this out and how it works for you. I've been your host, Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.